Okay then, time to get this beat sounding punchier. Let's start with the kicks. Run both of them into a Spider audio merger and splitter. So we press tab to look at the back, then take 1 and 2, which are the 2 kick channels, into it. From that, going to an M-class equalizer, with to hold shift when you create it so it doesn't automatically connect to the redrum instance. Then take output of that into the input of the equalizer, and the output of the equalizer into a fresh channel in the mixer we've got up here. Now, if you press tab to look at the front, we can play the kicks, and they're coming through in that channel we just set up. Now, we're going to use param 1 and 2 to boost the punchy bass end and the clicky treble end of the frequency spectrum for the kick, so you can feel it and hear it more clearly. So, turn on param 1, and with a small bandwidth, boost the gain completely to full. Let's make it a little bit smaller than that. Now, sweep the band of frequencies around the low end until you find that loudest sweet spot. I'll show you what I mean. You can hear what's really loud around there. There we go. So I found it around 140 Hz on this kick. And then just widen the bandwidth a bit to make it affect a more natural kind of range so it doesn't sound quite so resonant. You can hear. Now listen to the difference. Without and with. It's louder, but more importantly, the focus is on the punch now. Now for that clicky high end. Do the same with the high end. We're going to bring up a narrow band of frequencies and see where we can find that click of the kick. Pretty much got it there. Yeah, around 2.8 kHz on this one. But let's not make it quite as prominent as the punch. Let's take it down to about 10 decibels and widen it a little bit. So let's take a listen. So let's take a listen without any EQing, and then with the EQing. Both kicks sound much better. Now let's do the same thing for the snares. Run all 3 into a new Spider audio merger and splitter. Then into a compressor, an EQ, and then back into the mixer. So let's route that now. There we go. If we play the snares, they come into the new channel now. So we're going to make it have a slightly punchier attack and more of a noticeable tail with the compressor. So turn up the input gain to about 6 decibels just to make it a little bit louder. Turn the threshold down to -24 decibels, so everything is squashed to that volume. Then turn the ratio to 2:1. So it's only squashed a little bit. Let's take a listen with and without the compressor. So without it, and with it. Now the EQ is what will really bring out the punch. Using the same technique as the kick, find the 2 sweet spots. One for the bass and one for the high-end crack. No jokes, please. So let's turn up that gain just to full and a little bit thinner. Yeah, I can feel it around there. So I'm going to say about 205 Hz. And then for the crack, if we do the same thing. That's quite loud there. So if we bring them both down a little bit, this one to about maybe 7 decibels, and this one, yeah, about 12. Let's just widen the bandwidth so it sounds a little bit more natural as well. So let's take a listen without and with the EQ. So we've got without and with. Much better, right? As long as these frequencies you've chosen are different from that of the kick, the mix will be much clearer if you ever play the kick and the snare at the same time, or slightly overlapping. In fact, it's good practice to assign each instrument in your mix certain frequencies to stick to, cutting those frequencies in other instruments that might overlap. This is especially important in the bass end, where things can get really muddy really fast. So we've got this done. I think I might widen it a little bit more, because it was sounding quite resonant. There we go. And lastly, we're going to run the hats into a merger, EQ, and then into the mixer. So I'll just route that quickly now. Now on the EQ, We're going to boost the high end around to 10 kHz with Param 1. So we boost it right up. So if we listen without and with, this gives much more airiness to the hi-hats. You can also boost that high shelf a little bit if you want a little bit extra brightness. Now, we've got everything nice and punchy. Time to make it all sit together a bit better. So, we're going to turn the hi-hats down a little bit because they're quite loud. Then we're just going to add a quick RV7000 advanced reverb unit and turn it up on the hats. Just to give them a bit more space. Maybe reduce that decay a little bit. Sweet. Now, with the Scream 4 unit we bypassed earlier, turn it to tube mode, a mode that emulates tube amp distortion. Take the P1 knob to full, just so there's plenty of low end, and then damage control to just over a quarter. We don't want too much damage control. Turn off the cut and body modes, and take a listen without and with. Without, with. Without it, you have a more clinical, overwhelming beat, but with it, you get a grittier, more well-rounded beat that seems to fit together. Depending on the type of music you're making, you might prefer it without the Scream 4 unit, but if you try out a few of the distortions available, it could just give your beat that bit more character to it. And just to top it all off, join me in part 3, where I'll be adding a quick conga loop to fill out some more of the mix.